The detection arrays of the Valorian Confederacy's survey ship hummed with activity as they picked up unusual energy signatures from a small yellow star system. Commander Krelthus stood before the holographic display, his four eyes narrowing as data flooded across the screens. The system contained 8 planets, with the third showing clear signs of industrial civilization. What caught his attention, however, was not the civilization itself, but the readings from the planet's surface. "Impossible," muttered his science officer, a thin Valorian named Sarkul. "The gravity is reading at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's nearly double the galactic standard." Krelthus waved a dismissive hand. "Check your instruments. No species could evolve under such crushing conditions." But the instruments were correct. As they moved closer to the system, more disturbing data emerged. The third planet's atmosphere contained 21% oxygen, a concentration that would be toxic to most species in the galactic assembly. The surface radiation levels from the star were far higher than what was considered safe. Ocean salinity was extreme. Temperature variations ranged from freezing to boiling across different regions. By every metric the Valorians understood, this was a death world, barely capable of supporting life at all. "Sir, we're detecting orbital structures," Sarkul reported. "Multiple satellites, space stations, and what appear to be construction facilities. They've achieved spaceflight." Krelthus felt a surge of excitement. A death world with a primitive spacefaring species meant unclaimed resources and territory. The Valorian Confederacy could expand its borders significantly. He ordered a full scan of the system, and was pleased to find that while these humans had achieved faster-than-light travel, their technology was crude by galactic standards. Their ships were bulky and slow. Their weapons appeared to be simple kinetic and explosive devices. They had not even developed proper energy shields. "Prepare a claim beacon," Krelthus ordered. "This system now belongs to the Valorian Confederacy by right of superior development." 3 days later, a human colony ship named the New Horizon was making its way from Mars to a newly established settlement on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The ship carried 12,000 colonists, including families, engineers, and scientists. Children played in the recreation areas while adults prepared for their new lives in the Jovian system. Captain Maria Rodriguez sat in the command chair reviewing supply manifests when her communication officer suddenly straightened. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. Unknown origin, translating now." The message was brief and cold. The Valorian Confederacy claimed all territory in the Sol system. Humans were classified as a pre-contact species occupying a resource zone. They had 48 hours to evacuate all space-based facilities and cease all spaceflight operations. Failure to comply would result in necessary enforcement actions. Rodriguez immediately contacted Earth's United Nations Space Command. Admiral Elena Vasquez, a woman with steel-gray hair and calm eyes that had seen 3 decades of space service, received the report with growing concern. Within hours, humanity's response was prepared. The diplomatic corps drafted a message explaining that humans had inhabited this system for thousands of years and had sovereign claim to all bodies within it. They expressed willingness to establish diplomatic relations, but firmly rejected any territorial claims by foreign powers. Krelthus read the human response with amusement. These primitives from their death world actually thought they could negotiate with a superior civilization. He decided to teach them a lesson about galactic realities. The Valorian battlecruiser Dominant moved into position near the New Horizons flight path. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," Krelthus ordered. "Show them we're serious." But the weapons officer misunderstood, or perhaps Krelthus had been unclear. The plasma bolt struck the New Horizon directly, tearing through the hull and vaporizing 3 sections of the colony ship. 12,000 souls became scattered atoms in the cold vacuum of space. There were no survivors. The silence that followed across human communication channels was absolute. For exactly 17 seconds, nothing was transmitted from Earth or any human facility. Then, on every frequency the Valorians could detect, a single message broadcast from Earth in clear galactic standard language. "You have made a grave mistake. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. This is your only warning." Krelthus laughed. A deathworld species that barely understood plasma weapons was threatening the Valorian Confederacy. He sent his report to the Valorian High Command, recommending a full military response to secure the system. Within hours, approval came back. A fleet of 200 warships was dispatched to Sol system. The humans would be crushed, enslaved, or evacuated. The Death World would be stripped of its resources. News of the incident reached the Galactic Assembly within days. The Assembly was a loose confederation of 500 species that maintained peace through mutual trade and diplomacy. They sent an observer team to document the first contact situation. Among them was Quinara, a scholar from the peaceful Lith species, who specialized in documenting new civilizations joining the galactic community. Quinara reviewed the data on Earth with growing unease. The planet was classified as a Class 12 Death World, one of the most hostile environments known to support intelligent life. But something about the humans troubled her. Their cities were enormous, supporting billions of individuals. Their industrial capacity was staggering for a pre-contact species. Their cultural databases, easily accessed through their primitive internet, showed something unusual. Humans had been fighting wars against each other for their entire recorded history. Thousands upon thousands of conflicts, ranging from small tribal disputes to global wars that killed millions. They had developed weapons of incredible destructive power, including nuclear devices that could destroy entire cities. Yet somehow they had survived. More than survived, they had thrived. She found their entertainment particularly disturbing. Humans created fictional stories about survival scenarios, alien invasions, post-apocalyptic wastelands, and cosmic horror. They seemed to enjoy imagining worst-case scenarios and figuring out how to overcome them. Their literature was filled with stories of underdogs defeating superior opponents through cleverness, determination, and sheer refusal to give up. Quinara sent a preliminary report to the Galactic Assembly with a recommendation: approach the humans carefully. But it was too late. The Valorian fleet was already entering the Sol system. Admiral Vasquez stood in the command center of Luna Base, Earth's moon, watching the incoming fleet on her displays. 200 Valorian warships moved in a standard Imperial formation, clearly designed to intimidate. They expected surrender. They expected fear. They got neither. All ships to battle stations, Vasquez ordered calmly. Activate the orbital defense grid. Launch all available fighters. Send the coordinates to Fleet Command. Around Earth, Mars, Luna, and the orbital facilities throughout the inner system, weapons platforms came online. These were not the crude defenses the Valorians expected. Humans had built their space infrastructure to withstand micrometeorite impacts, traveling at thousands of kilometers per second. They had designed their stations to handle solar radiation storms that would fry most alien electronics. Every human facility was built like a fortress because space itself was hostile enough to demand it. The human fleet began to move. 78 warships of various classes emerged from behind Luna, Mars, and Earth's orbital stations. They were smaller than the Valorian vessels but moved with surprising speed and precision. The Valorians detected energy signatures that made no sense. The human ships were accelerating at rates that should crush any living crew. Krelthus opened a communication channel. Attention human vessels, you are outgunned and outmatched. Surrender now and your species will be allowed to survive as workers for the Confederacy. Refuse and we will destroy every ship, every station, and every city on your death world. Vasquez's response was broadcast across all channels. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Nations Space Command. You entered our home system uninvited. You murdered 12,000 of our people. You threaten our families and our world. We tried diplomacy. We gave you a warning. You chose violence. Now you'll learn why we survived our death world when so many others would have failed. All human ships weapons free. Show them what we learned fighting each other for 10,000 years. The human fleet opened fire, and the Valorians quickly realized something was terribly wrong. The kinetic weapons the humans used were not crude at all. They were railguns firing projectiles at relativistic speeds, backed by targeting computers that had been refined through decades of tracking and destroying debris in Earth's crowded orbital space. The first volley tore through 3 Valorian ships before they could even raise their shields. The humans fought like nothing the Valorians had encountered. They used the gravity wells of planets to slingshot around for attack runs. They hid in radiation zones that would kill most species, but which humans had learned to navigate during solar storms. They sacrificed drones and missiles in suicide runs that would have been unthinkable in galactic warfare, where every ship represented irreplaceable resources. But most terrifying was the way human ships simply refused to stop fighting. A Valorian cruiser disabled a human destroyer, tearing off its engine section. Instead of surrendering, The human crew used their maneuvering thrusters to continue fighting, firing every weapon they had until their life support failed. Another human ship, holed in 5 places and venting atmosphere, rammed a Valorian battleship rather than retreat. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 137 Valorian ships were destroyed. 51 had been disabled and captured by human boarding parties. Only 12 had managed to escape back into faster-than-light travel. The human fleet had lost 23 ships and suffered heavy damage to 30 more, but they held the field. Quinara watched the battle recordings with her mandibles clicking in distress. The Galactic Assembly had just witnessed something unprecedented. A Deathworld species had not just defended themselves, they had devastated a military fleet from an established interstellar power, and they had done it with technology the Assembly considered primitive. She began compiling her report, but her hands trembled as she wrote. The galaxy had just discovered something terrifying. Humans were not primitive survivors barely clinging to existence on a hostile world. They were apex predators who had been forged in conditions that would kill almost any other species. They had spent millennia fighting each other in the most brutal training ground imaginable. Now they had just discovered there were other species in the galaxy, species that had just killed 12,000 of their people. Quinara realized with cold certainty that the Valorians had not just started a war. They had awakened something that the galaxy was not prepared to face. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were very, very angry. The Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session 48 hours after the Battle of Sol. Representatives from 500 species gathered in the Great Chamber on the neutral world of Tharsis Prime. The massive amphitheater buzzed with concerned voices speaking in hundreds of languages, all translated in real time by the Assembly's communication systems. At the center podium stood Ambassador Kreltas, his once proud bearing now diminished by defeat and fear. "The humans are dangerous," Kreltas insisted, his voice carrying across the chamber. "They fight without honor, without restraint. They sacrifice their own people without hesitation. The Assembly must authorize a full military response before they become a threat to civilized space." Observer Quinara rose from her seat, her whiskers twitching with agitation. "Ambassador, Krelthas, you initiated hostilities by destroying a civilian vessel. The humans responded to an act of war. What did you expect?" "I expected them to understand their place," Krelthas snapped. "They live on a death world. They should be grateful we offered them the opportunity to serve the Confederacy." A murmur ran through the Assembly. The counselor from the Nexian Collective, an old and respected voice in galactic politics, spoke up. "Observer Quinara, you have studied the human world. Please share your findings with the Assembly." Quinara activated her datapad, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The first image showed Earth from space, a beautiful blue and green sphere wrapped in white clouds. It looked peaceful, inviting even. Then the data began to scroll. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world," Quinara began. "The gravity is 1.9 times the galactic standard. The atmosphere contains oxygen at concentrations that would be toxic to 62% of Assembly species. The surface receives significant radiation from their star. Temperature variations are extreme. Ocean salinity is high. Tectonic activity causes frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The weather systems regularly produce storms with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Images of tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions filled the displays. Many Assembly members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But here is what makes Earth truly unusual," Quinara continued. "Life not only exists there, it thrives. Earth hosts an estimated 8 million different species. The biodiversity is unlike anything we have encountered, and the dominant species, humans, did not simply survive these conditions. They conquered their entire planet." More images appeared, showing human cities, farms, mines, factories, and infrastructure. The scale was staggering. Humans had built civilizations in deserts, jungles, Arctic regions, and on every continent of their planet. They had populations in the billions. "How is this possible?" asked a representative from the Keelan species. "Our models suggest that a Class 12 death world should support small populations at best, living in carefully controlled environments." Quinara pulled up biological data on humans. The answer lies in their evolution. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on the African continent of their world. They would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies are designed for endurance. Their skeletal system and musculature are built to handle high gravity. Their cardiovascular system is incredibly efficient. Their immune system is aggressive and adaptable, capable of fighting off diseases that would be lethal to most species. She paused, letting that information sink in before continuing. But the most significant adaptation is their mind. Humans are problem solvers. When faced with a challenge, they innovate. When they cannot overcome an obstacle through strength, they use tools. When they cannot survive in an environment, they change the environment to suit them. And most importantly, they never give up. "Surely you exaggerate," protested a delegate from the harmonious choir species. "No species can be that adaptable." Quinara pulled up historical records from Earth's databases. Human recorded history spans approximately 10,000 years. In that time, they have fought an estimated 14,000 wars. They have developed weapons ranging from sharpened sticks to nuclear devices capable of destroying cities. They have survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and disasters that would have ended most civilizations. Yet their population has only grown. Their technology has only advanced. They have never stopped pushing forward. The chamber fell silent as assembly members processed this information. Finally, Counselor Nexian spoke. "What is your assessment, Observer? Are the humans a threat to the galaxy?" Quinara chose her words carefully. Humans are capable of extreme violence when threatened, but they are also capable of great compassion. Their culture values something they call the underdog, supporting those who are weak or oppressed. They form deep bonds not just with their own kind, but with other species. They have domesticated hundreds of animals on their world and treat them as family members. They create art, music, and literature celebrating cooperation and heroism. "So they are not a threat?" Counselor Nexian asked. "I did not say that," Quinara replied. "I said they are capable of compassion. But the Valorian Confederacy murdered 12,000 of their civilians. They threatened to destroy human cities and enslave their species. In human culture there is a saying, 'Hell hath no fury like a human protecting their family.' The Valorians have made humans very, very angry." As if to punctuate her words, alarms began sounding throughout the assembly chamber. A military aide rushed to Counselor Nexian with an urgent message. The counselor's face paled as he read it. "The human fleet has left Sol system," he announced. "They are pursuing the retreating Valorian ships. 42 human warships are currently in faster-than-light travel heading toward Valorian space." Panic erupted in the chamber. Krelthas felt his blood run cold. The humans were not content with defending their home. They were taking the war to the Valorians. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UNSV Retribution, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring systems and tracking their targets. They had been in faster-than-light travel for 6 days, following the trail of the fleeing Valorian ships. "Admiral, we're approaching the edge of Valorian space," reported her navigation officer. "ETA to the nearest Valorian colony is 4 hours. Vasquez nodded. She had spent those 6 days preparing her fleet and her arguments. She knew what was coming next, and she needed to be ready for it. Sure enough, a communication request came in from the Galactic Assembly. Counselor Nexian's face appeared on the main display. "Admiral Vasquez, on behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I must request that you halt your advance immediately. The Assembly is prepared to mediate this conflict peacefully." "With respect, Counselor, the time for mediation passed when the Valorians destroyed the New Horizon," Vasquez replied calmly. "They were given a warning. They chose to escalate. Now they will face the consequences of their actions. Admiral, please understand that military action against an Assembly member species could result in sanctions, trade restrictions, or even military intervention against Earth." Vasquez smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Counselor, let me explain something about humans. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We know war. We understand violence. We are very, very good at it. But we also understand that there must be consequences for actions. The Valorians committed an act of war. They murdered our people. If the Galactic Assembly will not hold them accountable, then we will. You cannot defeat the entire galaxy, Admiral. Perhaps not, Vasquez agreed. But we can make the cost of fighting us so high that no one will want to try. The Valorians thought we were weak because we come from a death world. They thought we would be easy prey. They were wrong. We will make sure that every species in the galaxy understands that message clearly. The communication ended. Vasquez turned to her crew. Prepare for combat operations. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to destroy. We are here to deliver a message. Humanity will defend itself, and there will be a price for attacking us. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valorian colony world of Carthax. The planet hosted 3 million Valorians and served as a major industrial center. The Valorian defense fleet, numbering 37 ships, moved to intercept the humans. What followed shocked military observers throughout the galaxy. The human ships moved with a precision and speed that seemed impossible. They accelerated at 12 gravities, a force that would crush most alien species. They used maneuvers that defied conventional tactics, spinning their ships to bring weapons to bear in ways that should have disoriented any crew. The Valorian commander quickly realized that the human ships were not carrying large crews. Most of the vessels were heavily automated, with small teams of highly trained operators managing complex systems. This meant the ships could pull maneuvers that would kill a conventional crew. It also meant the humans could risk their ships in ways no other species would consider acceptable. A human frigate, pursued by 3 Valorian destroyers, suddenly reversed its thrust and spun 180 degrees while still moving forward. The maneuver, called a Crazy Ivan by human crews, allowed the frigate to fire all forward weapons at the pursuing ships while maintaining its escape velocity. 2 Valorian destroyers were crippled before they could adjust to the unexpected tactic. But the battle took a dark turn when a Valorian missile struck a human destroyer. The ship's hull was breached in multiple locations, and life support failed in 3 sections. Galactic military doctrine said the ship should surrender or retreat. Instead, the human crew evacuated the damaged sections, sealed them off, and continued fighting. They operated in suits designed to protect them from the vacuum of space, the radiation of nearby stars, and the extreme accelerations of combat maneuvers. "This is insane," breathed the Valorian commander as he watched a human ship with half its hull missing still firing weapons. Why won't they stop? His tactical officer had no answer. The humans fought with a determination that bordered on fanatical. Ships that should have been abandoned continued to fight. Crews that should have been dead or unconscious from their injuries kept operating their weapons. It was as if the humans simply refused to accept defeat. The battle ended after 4 hours. 31 Valorian ships were destroyed or captured. 6 escaped to call for reinforcements. The human fleet had lost 8 ships and suffered damage to 17 more. But they held the orbital space above Carthax. Admiral Vasquez broadcast a message to the planet's surface. "People of Carthax, we are not here to harm civilians. We are here to deliver a message to your government. War has consequences. Your leaders chose to start this conflict. We will end it. Evacuate all military installations on the surface. You have 6 hours." True to her word, Vasquez waited the full 6 hours. Then human ships began firing kinetic bombardment weapons, railgun slugs that struck with the force of nuclear weapons, but without the radiation. Every military base, every shipyard, every weapons factory on Carthax was systematically destroyed. But not a single civilian structure was touched. The humans proved they could be precise in their violence. News of the attack spread through the Valorian Confederacy like wildfire. The humans were not just defending their home. They were waging a war of retribution, and they were very good at it. The Valorian High Command called for help from their allies. The Kreth Hegemony and the Zoltan Compact, 2 powerful military alliances, agreed to join the war against humanity. Quinara watched the reports with growing dread. The humans had just proven they could fight and win against superior numbers. Now they would face a coalition of 47 species. She feared that the galaxy was about to learn a very painful lesson about what happens when you threaten a species from a death world. The humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were apex predators, and they had just shown their teeth. The war room on the Kreth Hegemony flagship Inevitable Victory was filled with military commanders from 47 different species. They represented the largest military coalition ever assembled in galactic history, brought together by the urgent threat of humanity. Supreme Commander Zathrek, a veteran Kreth warrior with scales darkened by age and battle, studied the holographic display showing the current positions of all forces. The humans have 17 colony worlds and outposts beyond their home system, Zathrek stated, his voice a deep rumble that commanded respect. We will strike at these vulnerable targets simultaneously. They cannot defend all of them at once. When they scatter their fleet to protect their colonies, we will crush them in detail. His second-in-command, a Zoltan strategist named Velshara, raised a tentacle in concern. Supreme Commander, our intelligence suggests the humans are more formidable than initially assessed. Perhaps we should attempt negotiation first. Zathrek's laugh was harsh. The Valorians thought the same after their first defeat. Look where diplomacy got them. The humans destroyed Carthax's military infrastructure in a single day. No, we will show them the might of a true galactic power. We have 3,000 ships at our command. They have perhaps 200 vessels total. The mathematics are simple. What Zathrek did not understand was that humans had never fought wars based on simple mathematics. On Earth, outnumbered forces had won countless battles through superior tactics, determination, and a willingness to take risks that others considered madness. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the Vietnamese in the jungle, the Finns against the Soviets. History had taught humanity that numbers were not everything. The coalition fleet split into 47 strike groups, each targeting a different human outpost. The attack was coordinated to begin simultaneously across hundreds of light-years of space. It was a masterpiece of military logistics and timing. It should have been humanity's end. Admiral Vasquez received the warning from her deep space reconnaissance drones 30 minutes before the attack began. 30 minutes was not much time, but for a species that had learned to make split-second decisions in the chaos of Deathworld survival, it was enough. All colonies implement Protocol Alamo, Vasquez ordered calmly. All civilian personnel to the shelters. All military assets to defensive positions, and activate the packages. Protocol Alamo was humanity's contingency plan for exactly this scenario. Every human colony had been built with defense in mind. The structures were underground or heavily shielded. The defensive weapons were automated and could be controlled remotely. And most importantly, the colonies did not need large human populations to operate their defenses. The packages were something special. For 6 months, human engineers had been secretly deploying autonomous defensive platforms throughout their territory. Small, stealthy, and powered by fusion reactors, each package contained a railgun and enough ammunition to engage multiple targets. There were thousands of them, scattered across the human sphere of influence like invisible mines waiting to be activated. The first coalition strike group arrived at the human colony on Proxima Centauri. They found the colony's orbital stations dark and apparently abandoned. Confident that the humans had evacuated, the coalition ships moved into bombardment range. That was when the packages activated. Railgun rounds tore through space at relativistic speeds. The coalition ships' shields, designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles, were useless against solid projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. 3 ships were destroyed in the opening seconds. The others scattered, trying to identify the source of the attack. But the packages were small, cold, and stealthy. The coalition sensors could not lock onto them. Meanwhile, the human colony's automated defenses came online. Missile batteries, laser arrays, and kinetic weapons all firing under the control of advanced artificial intelligence, systems that could process tactical data faster than any organic mind. The battle was repeated across all 47 target systems. The coalition had numbers, but the humans had prepared their territory like a fortress. Every colony was a trap. Every approach vector was covered by overlapping fields of fire. The coalition lost 300 ships in the first wave of attacks and gained control of exactly 0 human colonies. Supreme Commander Zathrek stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. How is this possible? Where are the human ships? Where are their crews? His intelligence officer, a nervous Killian named Sareth, pulled up the data. Sir, it appears the humans use extensive automation in their military systems. Many of their defensive installations require minimal crew. They also employ artificial intelligence in ways that violate galactic convention. Artificial intelligence? Zathrek's scales rippled with concern. AI was considered dangerous by most galactic civilizations. Machines making life and death decisions without organic oversight was seen as unethical and risky. The humans do not share our concerns, Sareth replied. They have been working alongside intelligent machines for decades. They trust their AI partners to make tactical decisions at speeds no organic mind can match. Zathrek realized he had underestimated the humans yet again, but he was a warrior of the old school, and he believed in the power of personal combat. Very well. If the humans hide behind machines and automation, we will bring the battle to them directly. Order the fleet to the human home system. We will lay siege to Earth itself and force them to surrender. The human response was not what the coalition expected. Rather than fortifying Earth and waiting for the siege, the human fleet went on the offensive. 200 human warships, along with 400 automated combat drones, struck at the coalition supply lines and communication relays. They hit fuel depots, repair stations, and troop transports. They avoided direct fleet engagements and instead waged a campaign of raids and ambushes that stretched the coalition forces thin. This is not how civilized warfare is conducted, complained Commander Velshara as another supply convoy was destroyed by a human hit-and-run attack. They strike from the shadows, avoid honorable combat, and target our logistics rather than facing us directly. This is exactly how humans fight, replied Quinara, who had been assigned to the coalition as an observer and advisor. On Earth, they call it guerrilla warfare. They use these tactics against each other for thousands of years. They are very good at it. Then how do we stop them? Velshara demanded. You cannot, Quinara said quietly, not without taking unacceptable casualties. The humans are fighting for their survival. They will use every advantage, exploit every weakness, and never stop adapting their tactics. You are facing a species that evolved to be the apex predator on a death world. Everything about them is designed for survival and victory. The turning point came at the Battle of the Belt. The coalition fleet, numbering 800 ships, moved toward Earth through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was standard military procedure to move through the belt carefully, as the asteroids posed collision hazards. The humans used this to their advantage. Admiral Vasquez had positioned her fleet within the belt, using the asteroids as cover and concealment. She also had rigged dozens of asteroids with fusion charges, turning them into improvised mines. When the coalition fleet entered the belt, the humans struck from 3 directions simultaneously. The battle was chaos. Coalition ships collided with asteroids that had been nudged into their flight paths. Fusion charges detonated, sending rock fragments scattering like shrapnel. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired their weapons, and disappeared again before return fire could be coordinated. The automated drones moved with suicidal aggression, ramming coalition ships that were already damaged. But the most shocking moment came when human marines began boarding coalition vessels. Boarding actions were extremely rare in galactic warfare because the attackers usually suffered heavy casualties. The humans did not seem to care about casualties. They cut through hull plating with plasma torches, breached into enemy ships, and engaged in close-quarters combat. The coalition crews were horrified. The humans fought with a ferocity that seemed insane. Even wounded, they continued to fight. One human marine, later identified as Corporal James Martinez, had been shot 4 times by plasma weapons. Any other species would have been dead or dying. Martinez used his last magazine to disable the ship's main reactor, then died as his medical systems finally failed. The ship he disabled collided with 2 others before its crew could regain control. They do not know when to quit, whispered a Zoltan crew member as he watched footage of human boarders fighting through his ship. They do not stop until they win or they die. This realization spread through the coalition forces like a virus. The humans were not playing by the rules of civilized warfare. They were playing to win, and they brought to space the same ruthless survival instinct that had allowed them to dominate Earth. They used tactics that other species considered dishonorable, risky, or insane. They took casualties that would have broken the morale of any other military force. And they kept coming. The Battle of the Belt ended after 9 hours of continuous combat. The coalition lost 437 ships. The human fleet lost 62 ships and 41 automated drones. More importantly, the coalition's advance on Earth had been stopped. The survivors retreated to regroup and resupply. Supreme Commander Zathrek convened an emergency meeting of coalition leadership. The faces on the communication screen showed fear, doubt, and growing dissent. Several member species were already discussing withdrawal from the coalition. We cannot continue this war, stated the representative from the Peaceful Collective, a species that had joined the coalition reluctantly. The humans have demonstrated they will fight to the last person. The cost in lives and resources is too high. If we withdraw now, we show weakness, Zathrek argued. Every minor species in the galaxy will think they can challenge established powers. The humans are not a minor species, countered another voice. They are a major threat, perhaps the greatest military force we have encountered, and we awakened that threat through our own aggression. Quinara watched the coalition fragment from within. She had been compiling data on human warfare, psychology, and culture. What she had learned terrified her. The humans had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival against their own planet, against diseases, against predators, and against each other. They had developed a mindset that refused to accept defeat. They had technology that prioritized function over elegance. They had tactics that prioritized victory over honor. But she had also learned something else. Humans valued loyalty, compassion, and cooperation. They formed bonds with allies that were stronger than most species could understand. They mourned their dead and celebrated their heroes. They created art and music that expressed both their capacity for violence and their yearning for peace. The key to ending this war, Quinara realized, was not in defeating the humans militarily. It was in understanding what they truly wanted, and what they wanted was simple: justice for their dead, security for their families, and respect from the galaxy. The question was whether the coalition would realize this before the humans destroyed them completely. Because one thing had become absolutely clear to everyone watching this conflict: humanity was not going to stop fighting until they achieved their goals, or until they were extinct. And based on everything Quinara had seen, extinction was not something humans accepted easily. The Galactic Intelligence Council met in secret on a hidden station far from the war zone. Representatives from neutral species had gathered to compile what they were calling the Deathworld Dossier, a comprehensive analysis of humanity that would be distributed to all assembly members. The goal was simple: understand the humans before more species made the fatal mistake of underestimating them. Director Quan Lib of the Nexian Intelligence Service opened the session. His species had been gathering intelligence for 3,000 years, and he had never encountered a challenge quite like this. We have been analyzing human culture, biology, psychology, and military doctrine for 6 months. What we have discovered is both fascinating and deeply concerning. I will begin with the fundamentals. A holographic display activated showing a rotating image of a human. Humans are bipedal mammals from a Class 12 death world. Adult males average 75 kilograms, females 60 kilograms. This may seem small by galactic standards, but what matters is the density. Human bones are designed to support nearly twice standard gravity. Their muscle tissue is packed with mitochondria for endurance. Their cardiovascular system can operate efficiently at extreme altitudes, underwater, and in variable gravity environments. The display zoomed in on a human heart. The human heart is a remarkable organ. It beats approximately 100,000 times per day and can pump blood efficiently even when the body is under extreme stress. Humans can survive blood loss that would kill most species. They can continue functioning with injuries that would incapacitate others. In one documented case during their own wars, a human soldier had his leg severed by an explosive device. He applied a tourniquet to stop the bleeding and continued fighting for another 47 minutes before receiving medical attention. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled intelligence officers. Quenlib continued. But the physical adaptations are only the beginning. The human immune system is perhaps their most impressive feature. Earth is home to countless diseases, parasites, and pathogens. Humans evolved an aggressive immune response that can adapt to new threats rapidly. They routinely survive illnesses that would be lethal to most assembly species. A scientist from the Lith Concordance raised her appendage. Director, are you suggesting that humans are naturally resistant to biological warfare? I am saying that biological warfare against humans would be extremely difficult and possibly counterproductive. Their immune systems adapt. Their medical technology is surprisingly advanced in dealing with pathogens, and perhaps most concerning, they have experience with pandemics. In their year 2020, a global disease outbreak killed millions of humans. Their response was to develop multiple vaccines within a single year, deploy them worldwide, and adapt their entire civilization to continue functioning during the crisis. The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Quan Lib moved to the next section of his presentation. Now let us discuss human psychology. This is where things become truly unusual. Humans possess what they call pattern recognition and problem-solving abilities that are exceptional, even by galactic standards. When faced with an obstacle, human instinct is not to avoid it or accept it, but to overcome it. Video footage began playing on the displays. It showed human history from ancient times to the present. Humans building pyramids with primitive tools. Humans creating flying machines despite having no natural ability to fly. Humans splitting the atom and harnessing nuclear power. Humans walking on their own moon less than 70 years after achieving powered flight. Human progress is exponential, Quan Lib explained. They encounter a problem, solve it, and then use that solution to tackle bigger problems. They call this standing on the shoulders of giants. Each generation builds upon the achievements of the previous generation. This has led to a rate of technological advancement that is unprecedented in galactic history. Another display showed human warfare throughout history. Ancient battles with swords and shields, medieval sieges with catapults and arrows, world wars with tanks, aircraft, and eventually nuclear weapons. And this is what makes humans particularly dangerous. They have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. They have refined warfare into a science. They understand logistics, strategy, tactics, and combined arms operations at an instinctive level. A military observer from the Kreth hegemony spoke up. Director, we are aware that humans are experienced warriors, but surely our technological advantage should allow us to defeat them. Quan Lib's expression was grim. That is what the Valorians thought. Allow me to show you something. He pulled up footage from the Battle of the Belt. Watch carefully. You will see a human tactic they call the Crazy Ivan. A ship being pursued suddenly reverses thrust and spins to face its pursuers while still moving away from them. This allows the ship to bring all forward weapons to bear while maintaining an escape vector. The footage played, showing the maneuver executed perfectly. Several coalition officers shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the tactic that had cost them dozens of ships. Humans do not innovate slowly, Quan Lib continued. They adapt in real time during combat. They observe what works and what fails, and they modify their tactics immediately. Every battle against humans teaches them how to fight us better. Meanwhile, our conventional military doctrine, developed over thousands of years of relatively genteel warfare, is proving inadequate. The dossier moved into cultural analysis. Images of human entertainment appeared on the displays. Movies about alien invasions, post-apocalyptic survival, zombie outbreaks, asteroid impacts, and countless other disaster scenarios. Humans create entertainment about their own extinction, Quan Lib noted. They imagine worst-case scenarios and then create narratives about surviving them. This is not morbid curiosity. This is preparation. Humans are constantly mentally rehearsing for catastrophes. When real disasters occur, they have already imagined similar situations and considered solutions. A video played showing humans during their own natural disasters. Earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, volcanic eruptions. In every case, humans organized rescue efforts, rebuilt their cities, and continued on. Humans do not accept defeat from nature, from disease, or from enemies. Their species motto might as well be, "We survived worse." Quinara, who had been invited to contribute to the dossier, took over the presentation. I want to discuss something that the military analysis misses. Human capacity for compassion and cooperation. This is just as important as their capacity for violence. She pulled up footage from the aftermath of the Battle of the Belt. It showed human rescue ships pulling survivors from damaged coalition vessels, human medical teams treating wounded aliens with the same care they gave their own injured. During the battle, the humans captured several coalition ships. The crews expected execution or enslavement, based on what Ambassador Krelthus had threatened to do to humans. Instead, the humans treated prisoners according to something they called the Geneva Conventions, rules for warfare developed on Earth. Prisoners were given medical care, adequate food, and shelter, and were not tortured or abused. More footage showed human soldiers sharing their rations with hungry prisoners, a human medic working for hours to save the life of a wounded Valorian soldier, a human captain personally visiting captured crew members to ensure they were being treated properly. Humans have a saying, Quinara continued. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions. The humans are showing us through their actions that they can be merciful even while being fierce. They are demonstrating that they have rules, ethics and morals even in warfare. Then why do they fight so brutally? Asked a delegate from the harmonious choir. Why the suicidal attacks, the willingness to take terrible casualties? Because they are fighting for their survival, Quinara replied simply. Humans have another saying. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. The Valorians made peaceful coexistence impossible when they destroyed the New Horizon. The Coalition made negotiation impossible when they tried to invade Earth. So, the humans do what they have always done when faced with extinction. They fight with everything they have. The briefing continued for hours, covering every aspect of human civilization. Their education systems that taught critical thinking and problem-solving. Their economies that rewarded innovation and risk-taking. Their governments that, despite being diverse and sometimes chaotic, could unite their entire species when faced with an external threat. Their religions and philosophies that emphasized both individual rights and collective responsibility. Near the end of the briefing, Director Quanlib pulled up a final piece of footage. It showed a human child no more than 6 or 7 years old, being interviewed about what she wanted to be when she grew up. I want to be an astronaut, the child said, her eyes bright with excitement. I want to explore space and meet aliens and see new planets and make friends with everyone in the galaxy. The room fell silent. Here was the contradiction of humanity in a single moment. A species capable of terrible violence that dreamed of friendship. A species evolved on a death world that looked at the stars with wonder and hope rather than fear. Humanity is what happens when evolution forges a species in the worst possible environment, and that species refuses to be defeated, Quanlib concluded. They are warriors because they had to be. They are innovators because they had no choice. They are persistent because giving up meant extinction. But they are also dreamers, artists, explorers, and friends. They are capable of great evil and great good. The question facing the galaxy is simple. Which side of humanity do we want to see? The Deathworld dossier was distributed to all assembly members within 48 hours. Its impact was immediate and profound. Several species that had been considering joining the coalition against humanity immediately withdrew. Others began calling for peace negotiations. The mathematical reality was becoming clear. The cost of defeating humanity would be measured in millions of lives and thousands of ships. And even if the coalition won, they would face a species that would never stop fighting, never stop resisting, and never forget what had been done to them. In the Valorian High Command Center, Ambassador Krelthus read the dossier with shaking hands. He had started this war with a single arrogant decision to claim the Sol system. He had dismissed humans as primitives from a death world. Now he understood the magnitude of his error. Death worlds did not produce weak species. They produced survivors. They produced fighters. They produced apex predators who had learned to cooperate with each other, because that was the only way to survive. Krelthus made a decision. He contacted the Galactic Assembly and requested an emergency meeting. It was time to end this war before humanity showed the galaxy just how far apex predators could go when their families were threatened. Because the dossier had made one thing absolutely clear. If the galaxy wanted to see the true fury of humanity unleashed, if they wanted to see what Deathworld survivors could do when they stopped holding back, then they should continue this war. But if they wanted peace, if they wanted to see the other side of humanity, the side that dreamed of friendship and cooperation, then now was the time to negotiate, before it was too late for everyone involved. The ceasefire began at midnight Galactic Standard Time. Across hundreds of light years, human and coalition forces stopped shooting at each other by mutual agreement. The silence was strange after months of constant warfare. In the vacuum of space, ships that had been trying to destroy each other now maintained careful distances, weapons powered down but crews still at battle stations. Trust would not come easily. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the UNSV Retribution, looking out at the stars. Behind her, the door opened quietly. She did not turn around, but she knew who it was. Fleet Captain James Chen, her second-in-command, approached and stood beside her. The Assembly has chosen Tharsis Prime as the location for peace talks, Chen reported. They want you to lead the human delegation. Of course they do, Vasquez replied. They want the person who won the battles to be the one who makes the peace. It makes for better optics. Will you go? Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what the hardest part of command is, James? It is not making the decision to fight. That part is easy when someone threatens your people. The hard part is knowing when to stop fighting, knowing when enough blood has been spilled. She finally turned to face him. 12,000 civilians died on the New Horizon. We have lost 3,000 military personnel in this war. The coalition has lost tens of thousands. Every one of those deaths weighs on me. If I go to Tharsis Prime, I need to make sure those deaths meant something. I need to create a peace that ensures this never happens again. Then you will go? I will go. But not alone. I want representatives from every human colony, every ship that fought, every family that lost someone. The galaxy needs to see all of humanity, not just its military. 3 weeks later, the conference hall on Tharsis Prime hosted the most important diplomatic gathering in galactic history. The chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate representatives from hundreds of species. On one side sat the coalition delegates, led by Supreme Commander Zathrek and Ambassador Krelthas. On the other side sat the human delegation, 47 people representing the diversity of their species. Admiral Vasquez walked to the central podium. She wore her military uniform, but she had refused all weapons. Trust had to start somewhere. She looked across the chamber at the assembled representatives and began to speak. 6 months ago, the Valorian Confederacy destroyed a human colony ship and killed 12,000 of our people. They did this because they believed we were weak. They believed that coming from a death world meant we were primitive, easy to conquer, and unworthy of respect. They were wrong about everything except one thing. We do come from a death world. She activated a holographic display showing Earth in all its beautiful, terrible glory. Hurricanes swirled over oceans. Volcanoes erupted. Earthquakes split the ground. Lightning storms raged across continents. Earth tried to kill us every single day of our evolution. Disease, predators, weather, geology, everything about our planet was hostile to life. Most species would have died out. We survived. More than survived, we thrived. And we learned something important. Survival requires cooperation. The display changed to show human cities, farms, hospitals, and schools. Humans learned that we could not survive alone. We formed families, tribes, nations, and eventually a global civilization. We learned to help each other during disasters. We learned to share resources during famines. We learned that working together made all of us stronger. But we also learned to fight. Vasquez continued. The display showed human warriors throughout history. We fought each other for 10,000 years. We made terrible mistakes. We caused immense suffering. But we learned from those mistakes. We developed rules for warfare. We created laws to protect civilians. We established that some actions are unacceptable no matter the circumstances. We learned that peace is better than war, but that some things are worth fighting for. She paused, letting her words settle. When the Valorians attacked us, they gave us 2 choices: surrender and be enslaved, or fight and face extinction. Those are not acceptable choices. So we created a third option: fight until our enemies understand that we will never surrender, but also never become the monsters they expected us to be. We fought with honor even when our enemies did not. We treated prisoners with mercy even when we were shown none. We followed our rules of warfare even when it would have been easier to abandon them. Supreme Commander Zathrek rose from his seat. Admiral Vasquez, the Coalition fought to protect the established order of the galaxy. We believed humanity posed a threat to that order. And now? Vasquez asked. Zathrek's scales rippled with what might have been shame. Now we understand that we were the threat. We allowed arrogance and assumption to lead us into an unjust war. The Coalition has suffered greatly for this error, but not as greatly as humanity has suffered. Ambassador Krelthas also stood. His proud bearing was gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine regret. Admiral, I am the one who destroyed the New Horizon. I made the decision that started this war. I dismissed your people as primitives. I was wrong. I have watched recordings of your species for months now. I have studied your culture, your history, your values. I understand now what I could not understand before. Humanity is not primitive. You are young, but you are not primitive. You are fierce, but you are not mindless. You are warriors, but you are also dreamers. He gestured to the assembled Coalition delegates. We ask for peace, Admiral Vasquez. Not because we fear your military, though we have learned to respect it greatly. We ask for peace because we have learned that there is more to strength than the ability to destroy. You have shown mercy when you could have shown cruelty. You have followed rules when you could have abandoned them. You have treated our wounded and imprisoned with care when you could have left them to die. These actions speak of a civilization worthy of respect. Vasquez nodded slowly. Then let us discuss the terms of peace. First, all species involved in the attack on the New Horizon will pay reparations to the families of those killed. Second, the Valorian Confederacy will cede territory equal to what they attempted to claim from humanity. Third, all prisoners will be returned unharmed. Fourth, the Galactic Assembly will formally recognize human sovereignty over the Sol system and all our established colonies. Fifth, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Assembly with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Those terms seem reasonable, Councillor Nexian said from his position as mediator. Does the coalition agree? There was discussion among the coalition delegates, but ultimately Zathrek responded. We agree to these terms. Good, Vasquez said. But there is one more term. This one is not negotiable. The galaxy will establish a new protocol for first contact situations. No species will be enslaved, conquered, or destroyed simply because they are less technologically advanced. No Deathworld species will be dismissed as primitive. Every civilization will be given the opportunity for peaceful first contact and fair negotiation. If any species violates this protocol, humanity will respond. That sounds like a threat, Admiral, noted a delegate from the Zoltan Compact. It is a promise, Vasquez replied. Humanity has learned what it means to be threatened with extinction for no reason other than existing. We will not allow that to happen to others. If that makes us the galaxy's peacekeepers, so be it. If that makes us the defenders of underdogs and the weak, we accept that role gladly. We have been the underdog. We know what it feels like to face impossible odds. We will stand with anyone who faces similar circumstances. The chamber was silent. Then slowly Observer Quinara began to applaud. The sound was strange, her appendages creating a clicking rhythm, but others joined in. Within moments, the entire chamber was filled with the sounds of hundreds of species showing approval, in their own unique ways. The Treaty of Titan, named for the moon where the final version was signed, became the foundation for a new era in galactic relations. The terms Vasquez had demanded were accepted, along with dozens of additional provisions worked out over the following weeks. The Galactic Assembly underwent major reforms, including the creation of a first contact protocol that protected developing civilizations. Humanity was granted not just membership in the Assembly, but a special status. They were designated as apex mediators, tasked with resolving conflicts and protecting species that could not protect themselves. It was a role that fit human psychology perfectly. They had evolved as pack animals that protected their families. Now their pack extended across the galaxy. 3 years after the treaty was signed, the galaxy had changed dramatically. Human merchant ships traveled to every corner of known space, trading goods and ideas. Human engineers helped less developed species improve their technology. Human doctors shared their advanced medical knowledge, saving countless lives from diseases that had once been untreatable. Human artists, musicians, and storytellers exchanged culture with alien civilizations, creating a renaissance of creativity. But perhaps the most significant change was in military doctrine. The Galactic Assembly had established a joint defense force, and humans made up a significant portion of its leadership. Human tactics and strategies were studied at military academies throughout the galaxy. The old conventions of warfare, designed for civilized species fighting over resources and territory, had been replaced by more practical doctrines influenced by 10,000 years of human military experience. Former enemies became allies and even friends. Valorian engineers worked alongside human scientists to develop new propulsion systems. Kreth warriors trained with human marines, learning close-quarters combat techniques while teaching humans about advanced shield technology. Zoltan diplomats and human negotiators formed teams that successfully mediated conflicts across dozens of systems. On Earth, a memorial had been built for those who died on the New Horizon. It was a simple structure of white stone overlooking the ocean, with 12,000 names carved into its surface. Once a year, on the anniversary of the attack, representatives from every species in the galaxy came to lay flowers, crystals, energy offerings, or whatever their culture considered appropriate for honoring the dead. Admiral Vasquez, now retired from active military service but serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Assembly, attended every memorial service. This year, standing beside her was Ambassador Krelthus. He had resigned from the Valorian government and dedicated his life to promoting peace and understanding between species. It did not erase what he had done, but it was a start toward redemption. Do you ever regret how things turned out? Krelthus asked quietly as they stood before the memorial. Vasquez considered the question. I regret every death. I regret that we had to fight. But I do not regret standing up for our right to exist. And I do not regret that the war taught the galaxy an important lesson. What lesson is that? That strength is not just about ships and weapons. True strength is about knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. It is about standing up for what is right even when it would be easier to give in. It is about protecting others even at cost to yourself. These are the lessons humans learned on our death world. These are the lessons we try to teach the galaxy now. Krelthus nodded slowly. I have a confession to make, Admiral. When I first read the Death World dossier, I thought it was exaggerated. I thought the intelligence services were trying to make humanity seem more impressive than it really was. But now, having worked with humans for 3 years, I understand it was not exaggerated at all. If anything, it undersold what your species is capable of. We are just survivors, Ambassador. Earth made us tough, but it also taught us compassion. We know what suffering is, so we try to prevent it in others. That is the real secret of humanity. A young human child, perhaps 8 years old, approached the memorial with her family. She carefully placed a flower at the base of the stone and then noticed Krelthus. She walked up to him without fear and looked up at his towering form. Are you an alien? She asked with the blunt curiosity of children everywhere. I am Valorian, Krelthus replied gently. And yes, I suppose to you I am alien. Cool. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up and meet aliens and see new worlds. Have you been to lots of planets? I have, Krelthus said. And I think you will make an excellent astronaut. The child smiled and ran back to her family. Vasquez watched the exchange with a slight smile. That is humanity's future, Ambassador. Children who look at the galaxy with wonder instead of fear. Children who want to explore and make friends instead of conquer and destroy. That is what we fought for. Then the war was worth it? No war is worth it, Vasquez replied. But sometimes war is necessary to create the possibility of peace. Our job now is to make sure that peace lasts. To make sure that child grows up in a galaxy where she can explore and make friends without fear. High above Earth, at the point where the new horizon had been destroyed, a monument floated in orbit. It was a sphere of crystalline metal, containing the names of all who had died in the war, human and alien alike. Inside the sphere, a flame burned eternally, sustained by solar power and advanced technology. It was visible from Earth's surface on clear nights, a star that humans had created to honor the dead and remind the living of the cost of peace. The galaxy had learned to call humans by a new name, not Deathworlders, though they were that. Not warriors, though they were that too. The new name reflected both what humanity had been and what they had chosen to become. They were apex stars, the brightest and most fierce points of light in the darkness, guiding others and protecting those who could not protect themselves. And when other species, newcomers to the galactic stage, asked about humanity, the answer was always the same. Be grateful you met them as friends. Those who met them as enemies learned why evolution on a death world produces survivors who never, ever give up. But they also learned that those same survivors value mercy, honor cooperation, and dream of a better future for everyone. The legacy of the war was not hatred or fear, it was understanding. The galaxy had learned that strength comes in many forms, that compassion and ferocity could exist in the same species, and that the most dangerous opponents were those fighting to protect their families. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned that when you meet someone from a death world, your response determines whether you gain a deadly enemy or the most loyal friend imaginable. Humanity had earned their title as apex stars not through conquest, but through demonstrating that true apex predators know when to bare their teeth and when to extend their hand in friendship. The galaxy was richer for learning this lesson, even if the cost of that education had been high. As the memorial service ended and the representatives departed, Elena Vasquez remained behind for a moment. She placed her hand on the cold stone and whispered to the dead, "We kept our promise. We made your deaths mean something. Rest well." Then she walked away to continue the work of building the peace that those 12,000 souls had died to make possible, because that was what humans did. They survived, they adapted, they fought when necessary, and they never stopped working toward a better tomorrow. It was what made them apex predators. It was what made them Deathworlders. It was what made them human.